tired of all this rain? Does your yard look like a swamp after it rains? Hi, I'm Greg Doggett with Moisture Lock, Charlotte's premier waterproofing and foundation repair company. The longer water sits, the softer soil will become. This can cause foundation issues. If you're having drainage issues, contact Moisture Lock. We'll get the water away from your home and out of your yard.
Moisture Lock, stabilize, enhance, protect.
Weather Impact Live with Brad Panovich is sponsored by Moisture Lock, crawl space, basement, and foundation repair experts serving the Carolinas since 1988.
Hi everybody and happy Monday and welcome to Live Weather Impact. We were dealing with some technical difficulties, but we are back. We're joined with Alex Williams from WFMY, but I do want to start with the severe thunderstorm warnings that are impacting us here in the Charlotte area. This not impacting our Greensboro folks, so sorry that you have to listen to us, Greensboro friends, but hey, it's impacting these areas. So right now we have two pairs of severe, or I guess we have one pair of two severe thunderstorm warnings right now. Both of them are impacting Chester County. Now the first one here on the left portion of your screen is actually going to expire here within the next couple of minutes, and now we're kind of focusing in on the secondary one. Now I will tell you that I've looked at the GSP radar, which is Greenville-Spartanburg National Weather Service, as well as the terminal velocity. I'm not seeing a lot of support here for 60+ mile-per-hour winds. However, we have seen some pretty good hail tracker looks here when it comes to the latest on the hail. So here's where it started over in York County. You can see just south of Sharon, and you can see it tracked all the way through Chester and then now shifting further south and east. Now this is pea to penny size, so this is actually close to, if not just below, the technical severe threshold, which is a quarter size, which is 1 inch. But the reason why I want folks to hone in on this is that and some of these areas are relatively rural, but if you're one of these spots and you have seen hail, right, it's outside of your home, you can hear the pinging on your roof, or you heard it on your car when you were driving home. Take pictures and videos. Even if you don't see any damage, what that does is that now you have that information in the palm of your hand. You have time-stamped information that if later on there was an issue with, your car hood, I had that from the damage from the York County hail from about 2 years ago, an issue with your roof, an issue with a carport, any kind of damage siding on your home, even if it's minor, you now have that in the palm of your hand. You have the timestamps, and that will help later on for insurance purposes. Again, right now, 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, likely going to see this first one expire here in just a second. Let's track it out for you, as it is in our very, very southern part of our viewing area. So first one, again, is going away here pretty soon. So let's take a look here at the tracker. This is going to very quickly move into areas just south of us. So you'll eventually see this moving into the Columbia area, I would say by about 8 o'clock. Again, you can see this here. Adger around 7 o'clock, give or take. Winnsboro around 7:15. So again, these are moving pretty closely just to our south and west. Biggest impact, again, going to be hail and likely some gusty winds. As we look at the backside here, most of these storms are weakening pretty quickly. We have some light rain here on the southern side of Monroe, Union County, as well as some light rain in Anson County, Lancaster, and Chesterfield. Now, for folks who are maybe getting a bit of a I don't even know what word I'm looking for here, but overwhelmed with how much rain and storm activity we've had lately after such a hot and dry stretch. This is going to be the last day of rain and storms that are kind of summer-like this for quite some time. The next 7 to 10 days do look overall a lot drier. So we had nothing. We've had something recently, a lot of heavy rain, a lot of slow-moving storms. We had some isolated spots of really heavy rain that caused localized flooding in Indian Trail over the weekend. Lancaster County was dealing with that at the end of last week. James, I know you got multiple inches of rain over the weekend at your house in Matthews. So
sure did.
We're getting a break. We still need a lot of rain. We still need about 10 inches to get out of the drought. But what's interesting is that if you look at the year so far, I'm just going to throw up this graphic just because I thought it was interesting. Top number is 2026 so far. So the whole 5 months of the year, including today. So I guess 5 months in a day. Just in the last 31 days, we've essentially received half of that. So of the year, half of it has just come in the last month. So I think that just shows how rainy May was, how nice that was for the drought, but for folks who were dealing with some localized flooding the last few days, maybe not as ideal. So with that being said, don't want to ignore Alex. We'll bring him in from WFMY, one of our meteorologists there. Alex, how has the day looked so far for Greensboro? Because I know things were pretty active for us.
little bit of some scattered showers, say in southern Davidson County, and then up into a very, very thin line of showers that kind of came through the triad, and that marked, of course, the kind of leading edge of the front that's bringing us the much, much cooler temperatures into the day tomorrow. So I will say, if you're upset about all the rain, which you shouldn't be upset about all the rain in Charlotte, we need this rain. There is some cooler weather that's coming behind it, some drier weather that's coming behind it, and then for fans of the heat and the humidity, well, more of the heat, that comes back by the end of the week. So we did get a little bit of shower activity more towards, say, Wilkes County, Davidson County. Not the immediate triad, but we'll take every little bit we can get.
Certainly will. James pulled up one of the cool videos that we got earlier from our Dallas tower cam, so just wanted to show this. You can see the shelf cloud rolling through. We had some good wall cloud action as well. Wall cloud is that little piece here of low-hanging clouds that comes out from the base of the thunderstorm. No rotation, thankfully, although I was checking in some of the National Weather Service chat, and it does look like folks down south and west of us in the upstate of South Carolina, as well as Georgia, did see some areas, especially near Lake Hartwell, of some minor damage that could have been caused by a microburst. Again, that's outside of our viewing area, but kind of just goes to show that they were rocking and rolling today, right? Those are strong enough storms that outside of our viewing area, we did see some decent amount of microburst potential damage. Folks were always asked about, whether or not it's a tornado. Oftentimes it is just from damaging straight line winds. We know here in the Carolinas about 90% of our damage comes from those localized winds. As Alex mentioned, we do have some nicer weather coming behind this system. So tomorrow, we will start with some areas of light rain. I'm going to pull up Futurecast so folks in the Charlotte area can see this since we didn't get to do our local forecast. But you'll see as we go into the morning hours, we will see some areas of fog, maybe some patchy areas of drizzle, light rain. Very quickly moves out of here, and then gorgeous weather underway. What I did find very interesting is how cool temperatures are expected to get behind this front. So we start off tomorrow morning pretty nice, with some areas of that light rain, but temperature-wise pretty comfortable. But Wednesday morning, that's really this shining look here. We're going to see temperatures fall Wednesday morning into the low 50s, maybe even a few spots in the upper 40s. Yes, upper 40s, potentially in a few areas. And then Thursday morning will be pretty nice again. I'm going to pull up our low temperatures the next few days because while I do think people will be pretty excited about the 70s for daytime highs tomorrow, I do think that these look really nice too. Look at that average of 63 Wednesday and Thursday. We're looking at the low to mid 50s, and then again we'll quickly rebound back to more heat and humidity for the next weekend, but at least a few days of some nicer weather. Alex, we also know from a meteorological standpoint, today is the first day of meteorological summer. I don't know if you have any stats pulled up for Greensboro, but I did think this was interesting. So today we got to 83. Our average high for June 1st in Charlotte is 84. However, we actually peak at 91. That's our hottest temperature in essentially the middle part of July. And then it almost looks like we're in a perfect pyramid here because you can see we essentially start June and end August with pretty similar average temperatures in the 80s with that peak in the middle. What I do always think is interesting about this data, and I only honestly probably remember it so vividly because I just started working here in Charlotte. This was almost 5 years ago, but the data for our climate, 30 years, we got new data in 2021, and that was 1990 to 2020. Well, during that 3-year time period, that's where we get that average high of 91 in the peak of the summer. But the previous 30-year period from 1960 to 1990 was 89. So essentially in one kind of 30-year swoop, we saw an increase by 2 degrees. And while a lot of times people ask the question, well, like, why is that such a big deal? And it's just because our baseline is higher. So for example, if before you had a temperature of 89 and you were 5 degrees above average, well, that was 94. Well, now if our baseline is 91, now you're talking about 96. So if we were to see that continue to increase over the next few decades, we could see our baseline continue to get higher and higher. So just kind of an interesting little stat there. Today certainly felt like summer with those slow moving thunderstorms and all the humidity. So I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm glad to get a break from the humidity the next few days.
Yeah, and I am too, for sure. I am not a fan of the humidity. I like running outdoors, and when you run outdoors in humidity, your body has to work harder, your heart has to work harder. There's less oxygen per volume of air because there's more moisture per volume of air, and so It's just not a fun time. I get all hot and bothered, as they say, right? But if we look here as far as the triad goes, we approach close to 90. We don't quite get there. Our hottest is July 15th, around 89 degrees, and that's kind of our apex of average heat for this time of year. The upper 80s into August 1st, August 15th, 87 there, and then by the end of August, we're back to around the mid 80s. Our average for this time of year is 82. We hit 81 today, Brittany, so pretty close to the average for this time of year.
Yeah, same as us, 1 degree below the average for June 1st. So at least Greensboro and Charlotte started off knowing it was June 1st. First day of meteorological summer, also the first day of hurricane season. Before we get into this next story, I just want to remind folks that it only takes one storm to make a bad season. But yes, we are expecting a lower than normal season this year because of El Nino. With that being said, we do have a 2-minute story here from Taylor Thompson talking with folks in Batcave after all the heavy rain last week and how that kind of brought them flashbacks to Helene's impact. We obviously hope for never another Helene. But there's always the chance for these localized flooding events, and it certainly can create some weather and climate anxiety. So we'll go to that story and we'll be back in 2.
The lake fared very well for the amount of water that was coming in. We were able to maintain those lake levels and keep all systems within normal range.
Dustin Waycaster says they put in several protective measures since Helene and have managed to put their warning siren weather alert system back online.
We actually had to utilize it the other night during the heavy rainfall on the western end of the county.
He knows the fear those sirens bring to residents because he has his own fears too.
It wasn't really the sirens going off or anything like that. It was just seeing the amount of water and the debris that was, flowing into our lake right after we just got finished opening up.
What do we want to do today? We want a tube, I know that.
The lake opened Memorial Day weekend, 20 months since Helene. Mark Helms just got back on the water.
I didn't think I had any PTSD from Helene, but for sure, my wife and I have a little creek in the backyard, and I came home that night and I always just look out there as a barometer. I'll bring skis and I'll bring wakeboards. What size shoes you wear?
Helms and his wife run Lake Lore Adventure Company. Seeing his creek rise brought back a lot of emotion.
For sure there was a fear of, oh Lord, what's going to be in the lake tomorrow morning, or are the roads going to be okay?
That panic stretched over into Batcave.
We went from drought and fighting wildfires to flooding.
Steve Freeman says response is unfortunately second nature now.
You just got to go with it. We were more concerned with anybody in danger, so we started rushing around before we even got the first call. Start making people aware. That's the main thing with it all. That's what saves lives.
Both communities are thankful no one was hurt while cleanup continues.
Nobody that was here during Helene will forget it anytime soon.
And I think that's a good way to look at it, right? It's very unfortunate and we can't control the weather. We can forecast it to the best of our ability, but wanting to focus on the people, that were potentially in harm's way and kind of making that a priority. Also, it's an unfortunate part, of disaster planning and emergency planning, but a lot of times after a storm, right, or after training storms that cause localized flooding, like what happened last week with Batcave, it actually can make the response a little bit stronger because now you know what to look for, how to respond. And sometimes, it's like a state, for example, like Florida that gets hit by a lot of hurricanes sometimes has a better response than somewhere else that isn't as, actively hit constantly. We know in this case it was just slow moving training storms, which is a pretty typical thing, Alex, that we see a lot of times during the summer months. So certainly folks want to look out for, especially in areas we already know are low lying and already very prone to flooding from these days, like what we had last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're just blessed to have so many wonderful agencies like Samaritan's Purse in North Carolina that can respond here within the state and get a response out quickly to help with recovery. So I definitely will never forget Helene and the images that it left in Northeast Tennessee and even into Western North Carolina. I know people there in the mountains. I mean, anytime now you talk about flooding, if you're talking about it from us, from a communication standpoint, we really have to be careful about, talking about flooding or high risk of flooding, because people are going to think of Helene when they think of flooding in the mountains now. So it even changes maybe the dialogue with us, communicating this information to people as broadcasters.
Alex, you're absolutely correct. It's like it was last year after Helene, there's a lot of irresponsibility on social media, from folks trying to compare storms. And so we, like you mentioned, it's an even more important, process to go through and make sure that you're being as accurate as possible, but also sensitive to other people's, stress and anxiety when it comes to weather and climate situations. I'm going to leave the show today talking really quick once again about our severe thunderstorm warning that we still have in southern parts there of Chester County. This is impacting Great Falls right now. Certainly an increase with lightning as of late. You can see right near Great Falls. Other than that, really the biggest impact besides heavy rain and gusty winds around 40 miles an hour in this area will be some pea to penny-sized hail. Again, I mentioned this earlier, not seeing a lot of radar support for quarter-sized hail at this point, but certainly seeing some radar support for something. So